It is 7 o'clock. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I move to approve the amended agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Agenda is approved unanimously. Moving on to presentations, proclamations, and visitors. Are there any members in the audience or on Zoom that wish to speak? None. Moving on to consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the consent.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The consent agenda is approved unanimously. Moving on to public hearings. The council will now open the public hearing on agenda item 4A, 2025-03, LA ordinance number 730, amending Aumsville's development ordinance 705 at 7:01 p.m. We invite staff to present the report.
Good evening, council. Our planner, Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Government planner, was not available tonight, so he asked me if I would go ahead and give the staff report. So as council knows, this has been a process that's been going on for a number of months. On November 20th, we had a hearing in front of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of the ordinance as presented by staff with the findings. After we had the Planning Commission hearing, there was some a little bit of internal wordsmithing, mostly cleanup and things like that. But one of the things that we didn't get back in time for the Planning Commission hearing was our city attorney review. And with one, we gave it to him later than we should have because we were cleaning up. And then with the holidays and some vacations, there were a couple of people sick. They have not got back with their final review for us. So I'll go through the staff report and I'll hit the highlights of the changes. And then at the end, I'll have a recommendation moving forward with the action. And so before you is ordinance 730. Most of the changes that we made were related to some new legislative rules that came out related to duplexes and manufacturing homes. We did add a few definitions in the definition section, which councils had an opportunity to review, just so we could clarify our intent a little bit better. Keeping in mind that when you do an adoption of a development code, it's never black and white because you can't account for all the scenarios. There's a certain amount of intent by us and the council. So there's a few definitions that have been changed or wordsmith, mostly related to multi-family housing. We've adopted some of the state definitions for things like vehicles, accessory sheds. We specifically called out that containers are not an accessory building. And those were kind of the highlights of the definitions. If you go to section 5 and 6, which is the bulk of the changes, and those are related to the legislative changes. that just basically require us to treat manufacturing homes a certain way. We have to allow duplexes in single-family zones. We did make a call out in section 6 related to average square foot of apartment complexes as per discussions previously by council. I believe they can average 850 square feet throughout the complex now. In section 7, which is our downtown commercial zone, the only real change that we made is we wanted to clarify a little bit on the outside storage. We do not allow outside storage, but we wanted to clarify unless that's the nature of your business. I'll give you an example. If you were going to do auto repair, obviously we wouldn't want parts and stuff sitting all over the outside of the building. But if you're a car dealership, your inventory is displayed outside. And so that would just be something you would get approved as part of site development review. So where we don't allow outside storage, there are exceptions, and that's to get it approved through site development review. And there's some criteria that we assign so that we didn't run into arguments. And the criteria is you have to show that the nature of your business, that your business is to display these things outside. And that's basically it. We added something in there about lighting. Lighting and lighting pollution has been an issue that we've struggled with throughout the city, and enforcing it has been a struggle because we really haven't had anything in the code directly tied to that. So in the definitions, there's a definition of what a approved lighting fixture would have to consist of, and then we've memorialized that through the code. So that's in there as well. In section 8, we added some setbacks. This is our industrial section, and we didn't have setbacks. And other than those that would be like required for the buffering of landscaping for different zones. So we just added some minimum setbacks of 5 feet. Most people would set their building back, but we just noticed that this was the only section we didn't have setbacks. And so that was one of those changes that we made later. It was just something that hit us and we thought, well, let's try to get it in there. The next section, I mean, everything's formatting and Scribner errors changes until you get to 18. And there were a couple of things that came up. One, we had a recent decision where we were working with an applicant related to the amount of parking that he needed. And it was back to the car dealership example. A certain number of his vehicles had to be stored outside while they're waiting for repairs. But our code was written to have a maximum allowable off-street parking allowance. And so that basically made it so he couldn't do any business. And so we just added a section that said that, you know, the operation and storage of your business doesn't count towards off-street parking. And basically that was, if you're only allowed 4 spaces to park vehicles, the code requires a vehicle has to be parked on a hard pavement surface. And if we say you can only have 4, then that limits your business and your business may need more. So we called that out. I didn't think the code was interpreted that way, but that's the way that some other people have interpreted it. So we tried to clean it up. There's some parking changes to some of the vehicle parking space requirements. And again, that was just to align with state law. And then I think the next big section is, the rest of them were pretty minor. Landscaping. One of the things we heard from council is you'd like to be able to offer a little bit more diversity in landscaping. And honestly, we wanted to be able to show an easier format for the public to use. So we kind of got rid of that percentages.
What section is that, Ron?
That's section 23. Yeah. And so, so there's, the main, changes that we did in there, it was a light edit, but basically, at least 25% of landscaping has to be a planting bed. We don't
I think it's
say-
on one page, page 158,
Yeah.
Doug.
That's page 158, yes. At least 25% has to be a landscaping bed, and 50% of that has to have trees and shrubs. And so we left it at that, and council had an example of somebody that might just have like a landscaping scene with rocks and shrubs and bark and trees, and so that was to try to accommodate that. So they don't have to plant grass or other ground cover. They could do that, but they're gonna have to put a certain amount of shrubs. They can't put 2 or 3 shrubs in there. We've looked at other landscaping, I guess other commercial landscaping that was done in other cities, and most of them are beyond 50% coverage. So we felt 50% was a good area to have that in. We added a little language. These are the areas where we're thinking the city attorney might wordsmith a little bit. We added some language related to in a multifamily zone, because remember, the development code sets regulations up per zone. But as an example, in a multifamily zone, you may have somebody build a single family home. We just want to make sure they know we want them to landscape the front yard. And if you had an apartment complex, you couldn't say that, because the front yard or the area that may need landscaping could be different depending on the complex. So we clarified that a little bit. And then the next big section, I believe, is section 26, which is the temporary use of containers. And basically what we did, based on discussion, is said that they would have to get a permit. The containers would have to be placed on their property, and it would be for no more than 60 days for a resident, for either a move-in or a move-out. And that's really probably the best use of a moving container in the city. Otherwise, if we don't have some sort of restrictions, they can be placed in the street. Once they drop those things, we can't get the company to come back and get them. If we hold the homeowner responsible for that, then that's up to them to figure out whatever arrangement they made with the rental company, then they can get them to come out, move it or whatever. And that's really the bulk of the changes there. We would ask council to hold this over pending the city attorney's final review. And what I would recommend, I'm not sure if this is the cleanest way to do it or not, because I've not had this circumstance happen before, is what I would do is ask council to go ahead and if you feel inclined to approve tonight or to move it forward, you could close the public hearing, and then in your first action, you could just amend your motion to say to approve the first reading of the ordinance pending changes by the city attorney, and holding the final decision over until January 12th, I believe, is the council meeting. And so it would just be that motion with that little add on the end. And then all we would have to do basically would be to open the public hearing, accept the updates from the city attorney, close the public hearing, and then have the second reading. Not the cleanest way, not the way I'd
Sounds very
like to do it,
complicated.
but I'm hesitant to ask you to approve without getting our city attorney to buy off on some of the changes. And sometimes a word, and, or really makes a difference in the meaning of an ordinance. And so we really want to get that professional land use attorney's review before we take final approval. There are some comments that came in. There was a comment in your packet from I believe the Fair Housing Authority, if you notice in your packet, if you've had a chance to read that. Our planner doesn't feel like those things apply to us. He's actually written them back. And the way he described it to the Planning Commission is most of these things will apply to a larger city that has their comprehensive plan structured different and embedded in the development code. We don't, it's a separate document. It really doesn't apply to us. And then there were some comments you may or may not have gotten. There's a number of neighbors that are waiting for these changes because there's some relief for sheds. If you're on a corner lot, a shed or an accessory dwelling unit can be, in this version, can be in a side yard as long as it's got a fence in front of it. And there's a number of folks that are waiting for that to happen so that they can get their sheds approved. Pending that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Some really good edits. Some good changes, some good clarification. So hopefully it's easier for this just general citizens to understand.
Mhm.
All right, so,
Can I ask Matt a question? Do you agree that that's easier for the citizens to kind of understand? Yeah.
Matt, can you come up to the,
While he's coming up, some of the changes that we made that we're waiting for city attorney to review is exactly that, where we wanted to clarify what our expectation was. But we don't know if we're allowed to do that in each
Matt?
particular zone. So we were simply doing that clarification, but at the same time, in planner speak, that may not necessarily be the way we can do it.
before you answer his
Sure.
question, we have to follow our formats. We'll just hold on a second. Okay.
Sure.
So, we don't have any members in the audience or Zoom. We do have the written comment that is in the packet. I don't think any of us got any additional comments. So, with that, does staff have any additional comments? And that's,
We can go to questions.
go to questions. Okay, go ahead and answer.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like Ron said, we tried to address some of the like major issues that come to City Hall, like the landscaping. I think before it said like 80% coverage. It's really hard to like look at something and be like, well, that 75 or is that 80%? Is that 50%? You know, and so having the 50 is a lot easier for us when we go out to do an inspection to see, okay, pretty much half of it's covered, and we're gonna do our best to make sure it's close, but that's gonna be a lot easier. The sheds, a lot of things were cleared up in the sheds. When we go and meet with homeowners that want to put a shed in a corner lot, that's been a major a thing that people have said, why can't I put a shed in my side yard? The side yard that's closest to the street is bigger than my other side yard. It doesn't make any sense. And where there's like, well, that's what the code read, and so that's what we have to, you know, enforce. And so cleaning up some of those issues is a majority of what was done on our end for that stuff.
I think that's good because that was part of our intent, was to make them not only easier to understand, but easier for you guys to enforce.
And I think there's still going to be issues where people try to stretch the rule and make it, you know, fit in their favor. But I do think it helps clear up some of that.
Wherever we set it, they want to go a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
Push the boundaries just a little bit.
Yeah.
But that was a
I didn't
major
go
issue.
through each line by line. I went through the major ones, but one of the other changes was related to fences in the downtown commercial area. We have some old non-conforming residential homes that have wood fences. They want to replace those with wood fences. the change would allow them to do it. So what we're trying to do is eliminate some of the code enforcement, but still direct people towards the design and aesthetics that the community desires. So we're kind of splitting it a little bit there to make it accommodating, but at the same time, look towards the future.
Yeah.
Good job, guys.
Does council have any other questions? Okay, so with that, we can go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:20 PM. So this is where we have that weird, yeah. Are there any further deliberations? None?
I'd like to say thank you for working on our requested changes. Happier with them.
Yeah,
Second.
I think that the changes reflect like a good middle ground from what was discussed in that planning meeting. With that was that long one that we had here, yeah.
Planning session.
The planning session, yeah. Okay, so
So do you need a motion with the first reading, or do we just need a motion to hold the session or reopen the session on January 12th once we get more information? I'm confused. What do we want?
Well, we've closed the public hearing, so what I would like the motion to read, the first reading approved as presented by staff. Holding for any revisions made by the city attorney till January 12th. And
Okay.
then we should be able to, especially if it's just some Scribner edits, if it's nothing material, we can simply do the second reading and approve. If there's some material changes, meaning it alters the allowable use in a particular zone, I don't think that's going to be the case. They might delete some of our clarifications, but I don't think it's going to change anybody's ability to use their property somewhere. Then we would have to hold another public hearing. We'd just do what we just did. And really the difference is we just go through the re-advertising process. But I think if you just simply say, approve, postpone to January 12th pending our city attorney's edits and review, then we could possibly just take the second vote January 12th.
okay,
I move to approve the first reading by title only of ordinance 730 and ordinance amending ordinance 705, the Aumsville Development Ordinance, including provisions to clarify wording and conform with the state of Oregon legislative mandates as presented by staff, and to hold final approval until January 12th meeting for any comments or changes made by our attorney.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so until January. Okay, moving on. The old business. There is no old business. New business. Agenda item 6A, Planning Commission reappointments. We invite staff to provide more information.
Thank you, Mayor Council. I'll take this one. Is there anything in my packet? 6A, there we go. So we have two planning commission positions that expire on December 31st. These two planning commission members have done a good job for the city, and they've been engaged and would like to continue their duties as assigned. We've had an open position advertised for almost a year. It may be beyond a year. I don't know. I don't have.
It's been more than a year.
Yeah, and we just appointed that person at the last council meeting, and that was the only applicant we have. So we really don't have any other interested parties that we could choose from, and we've got two members that are willing to continue to serve. We just need to reappoint them for their new term. And I believe the motion is outlined to go with their new term, which would take them through 2027.
You're sure they're willing? You're sure they're willing or some.
Well, they said they were.
They indicated at our meeting that they would be even when
Yeah.
we were all together, so I think that's pretty fair.
It should be. I sent them a Christmas card.
I move to reappoint Courtney Brennan and Molly Hatfield to the Aumsville Planning Commission effective January 1st, 2026, with a term to expire December 31st, 2027.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to agenda item 6B, Oregon Department of Emergency Management grant application. Matt?
Matt Etzel, Assistant Public Works Director. Before you is a staff report and a contract for the Oregon Department of Emergency Management. Several months ago, we applied for a trailer mounted generator so that we could keep at one of our well sites that don't have emergency backup power. We were successful in the grant, and so before you are the contracts for that generator. There's no cost to the city for the equipment. There's some minor annual reporting that's due, like maintenance that was done, hours on the equipment, some pictures of the equipment. And we feel like we can go ahead and do those reports and the maintenance on that equipment. The only other thing is the equipment, if another community is having an emergency and we are not, that we would have to basically help that community get the generator, use the generator and train them on the generator, and then we would get it back when they were done with it. So it's a pretty great program. There's a map of all the different equipment that's out throughout the state that you can get if your city needs it. And so it's also a great resource for us for one of our wells that doesn't have power.
I was going to say, I'd just add the nice thing about being part of the program is we also have access to
Right.
everybody's equipment as well, but.
So unless we need it.
What's that?
Unless we need it. We don't
Yeah, unless
give
if
it
we're
away.
if we're actively using it, then we don't have to give it to another community unless maybe their need is worse than ours. But it doesn't sound like that's been a problem when I've talked to different emergency management groups. I think if we can show that we have a use for it, then we keep it here.
Council have any questions? None?
Other than what I just asked.
Yeah, other than that.
Sorry.
Sorry, yeah. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the ODEM generator agreement SP 25-136 as presented by staff.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to agenda item 6A or 6C, West Tech final design agreement change order.
Yeah, so a little bit about this change order. As we're nearing completion of the design of the wastewater treatment plant, we're kind of getting into some more details. And one of those issues that was brought up was the Beaver Creek crossing. We knew that we were going to have to make the crossing. Some initial geotech work was done. We actually had a change order previously for some additional geotech work that showed some unfavorable soils for the crossing. And the first thought was that we were going to directional drill a pipe across the creek, and that plan has changed to where it's a trenchless core drill where they drill 2 pits on either side, and it's a straight auger bore across. It's a lot more complicated. The size of the pipe is a lot bigger than we originally thought. And so in order to try to prevent some future change orders during construction that could be several hundreds of thousands of dollars, one of the change orders, or one of the items in the change order is for the additional work to engineer that crossing so that when a sub-consultant that's part of the general construction project looks at this. They know exactly what they're gonna encounter when they do this crossing, and they can properly put out a bid to the general contractor to do that work. If we don't specify these things, they could do a crossing, it could fail. They could come back and say the engineer didn't give them enough information, and then we would be responsible for them to try it again with not enough information and possibly fail again. So that was one of the items. The other item is we've spent some additional time on approval processes. We kind of talked about this when we first brought the design contract to council. Our thought was that we would take BABA waivers and any additional out of the scope work as a separate task order. Wessex kind of started to do that work already, and we didn't do another task order. We just kind of started to get the ball rolling on those things like the BABA waiver, the procurement for the biosolids, in order to make sure that we stayed on track with our schedule. And those things have added up in time, so much so that our engineers said it's probably added like 14 months worth of work to their scope. Obviously, that's not all one piece, but it's extended how long that they've had to work on this project. And so there's some additional costs. There's some additional costs with sub-consultants that they're working with to get these waivers and to get through some of this process, dealing with attorneys. And the interesting thing is attorneys have a view of a contract, and then engineers have a view of the contract, and then funding agencies have a view of a contract and how it should be spelled out. And sometimes those don't all align. And so trying to get everyone on the same page where we have multiple funding agencies, we have to make sure that they're all in agreement that they're going to pay the bill when those bills come. So I can't say that this is going to be the final one. We hope that it's the final change order, but we are getting pretty close to being complete with the design. So I feel like we're kind of wrapping up loose ends, and this one's kind of the last one out there. Happy to answer any questions.
Final.
This is the final design. This is change order number 3. I'm hoping there's not more, but
I was gonna,
yeah.
like, don't say it.
Yeah, don't jinx it.
Not bad on a project this size.
Well, that's
They change
the
over
thing
the
is when you look at the overall contract price of, or the total with this change order of $1.3 million, and then the potential for what that could cost us if we don't do this work upfront. It could cost us a lot of money when we get to the point of construction. And if we're trying to make those dollars count during construction so that we don't go over, the last thing we want to do is get into construction and get something started and then not be able to fulfill those requirements.
They're still gonna try to go over the creek, but if they can't, then they'll go.
They're still going to try to go under the creek. There's like 2 different techniques. One is where they use like a metal rod basically, and they drill underneath the creek, and they can have like an angle, and they can go around things. If they hit a rock, it can kind of go around the rock, and then they pull the pipe back through. The pipe was too large to do that, and so the preferred method is to drill a hole. You basically carve a straight hole across a creek, underneath the creek, and then pull the pipes back and fill that void. It's a lot more complicated than just directional drilling across the
And
creek.
that's the extra money, is it there?
Yeah, and the extra money is in the design work that takes. They have to tell the driller what kind of soils, what they expect that work to look like. They basically have to design that pipeline underneath the creek, even though it's a pipeline that's holding multiple pipes. So best way to describe it.
The more you guys talk, the more I'm glad that I don't have your job.
More you what?
I'm glad I don't have their job.
They can get complicated,
And
but
design and build and charge us for something that we will never see.
yeah,
If you're out there at the right time, you'll see it
yeah.
before it gets buried.
Not under the creek.
We will have a big thick binder probably just for that portion of the project that we can say, hey, look what we spent this money on.
We will,
But
Matt, do you want to touch on just a little bit of our work with the funding agencies and DEQ that we've recently had to do pending some of this other stuff?
sure, we've for example, the biosolids procurement, we've had to do a lot of back and forth with the attorney, the city the city engineer, the attorney, and the funding agency to make sure that all those pieces align. At the end of the day, the attorney has to sign a letter that says they agree with how we procured this part of the project and how we advertised it and how we bid it out. So that took a lot of work. Is there anything specific
The
on that?
extension for the implementation.
Yeah, so we recently also applied for an extension of the compliance schedule. That is so that we can make sure that we meet all those requirements, and they were generous. DEQ was generous enough to give us a 120-day extension on the interim limits. That was something that Chris helped with as well, and took time, to put together an updated schedule that we could, and DQ had no problem with that. They see that we're making strides towards the ultimate goal, and they agreed that the 120-day extension was something that was needed. So
And a lot of the back and forth delays have been this coordination that we've had to do between the city attorney, because even like things like our property, right of ways, all of that has to go through that review. They have to make sure we have a legal right to put the equipment there and the facilities. The funding agencies, and each funding agency, even though the funds may come out of one pool of funds, ultimately, whatever pool we take it out falls under the umbrella of USDA because they're funding the bulk of the project. And so they have to approve anything that we spend towards the project, that even if it's not out of their funding pool, to make sure it's a qualifying expenditure. And so we're still having, even though we may be using like the Marion County ARPA grant or the direct ARPA funds, we're still having to report to USDA through their reporting process. So it's a large coordinated effort, and it's not just, okay, we need this, let's get it approved. It's we need it, let's get it approved pending this agency, that agency, and this agency all signing off.
And since we wrote the staff report, all the funding agencies have responded and said that they agreed with the change order, and that they would support those, that change order and fund it. Yeah, like Ron said, that all of the different funding agencies have to be in agreement, and even if we're not paying for it with USDA dollars, their requirements come in. And the hard part is DEQ might not understand USDA's requirements. So then we have to spend time explaining why we are in this new contract. For example, the EJCDC engineering contract. We had a contract with West Tech, but USDA didn't recognize that because it wasn't a federal contract. So then we had to change the contract. And even though the attorney approved the original contract, but then the attorney has questions about the EJCDC contract. So it's kind of a circle that just sometimes doesn't stop. But yeah.
We're gonna get there though.
Yeah, we're close.
We're close.
All right. Is there well, I think we had a pretty good discussion, but is there anything else, just in case? All right. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the West Tech Final Design wastewater treatment plant CA number 3 in the amount of $98,815 from Fund 019-635 and 019-636 as presented by staff.
All those in favor?
Aye.
A second? Walter seconded, sorry, guys. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Just so excited for it to be the final one. Okay, moving on to agenda item 6D, Corn Festival proceeds, distribution.
Distribution.
We now invite staff to report.
Thank you, Mayor Council, Ron Harding, City Administrator. Every year after the Corn Festival is concluded, and we find out what our profit and loss is, we have been taking those funds and then recommending a distribution to some of the local service entities that help us volunteer and staff, not just Corn Festival, but events throughout the year. And a number of the groups that are listed here participate in most, if not all, of our events. Some only participate in Corn Festival, but a number of them participate in events throughout the year. This year was a little bit different. We actually did fairly well. And if you look at our net proceeds for Corn Festival, it's been somewhere between like $14,000 and $18,000. Usually we don't give away to the penny. Sometimes we'll go up a little bit or down a little bit. And this year our net proceeds was closer to $30,000. So we did quite a bit more. So I met with the executive committee. That was myself, the mayor, and council president. We just discussed how and what we would do, how we would recommend these distributions to the group. And I think where we landed is we should try to keep the distributions consistent in past years. The distribution list that you have is within $500 or $1,000 if you're a large group of your normal distribution, either up or down. And then all of the other smaller groups are all exactly the same. And so it's a little over $20,000. I believe it's $20,750. And our recommendation is that we keep $10,000 of the proceeds in reserve rather than just give it out if there's not a need for the group. We thought, let's keep that in the reserve, that if a group has a need, they can come forward in addition to the distribution, explain what that need, and then we could decide if that is a good use of those funds. The most volunteer hours that we get signed up are people that just sign up for the city. They're not affiliated with a group, they're just community members. So it makes sense to have some that we can distribute to community needs. And that's kind of where we landed on our thought. We did, I think we gave either the same or maybe $500 more to Marion County Search and Rescue, and I think the same with the Exchange Club. And what we did was we bumped up the Santiam integration team. One, because they actually use those funds for direct relief to people in the community for emergency medical expenses or loss of employment, or help with utility bills for low-income folks. And we thought there was a little bit more of an urgent need there. And the other groups can use the funds and they'll use them, but they don't necessarily come back in that kind of a service. And for them, these are great fundraising dollars. So I'm sure that they are more than happy with that, those dollars. So we tweaked it just a little bit for some emergency needs. And then we decided, rather than just give all the money away to groups that then would have to figure out how do we spend it, we're better off to hold it and address emerging needs like the SNAP program that went away or was stalled during the government shutdown. If we have, if we don't distribute those funds throughout the year and next year we have less revenue, then we can fill in the gaps so that we're providing that consistent funding to those groups. So that's our recommendation this year. I'm happy to answer any questions if council has any question about our recommendation.
I don't have any questions, but I do want to add in that, Ron and I had a really in-depth conversation about um, how this money goes out and the corn festival itself, right? So one of the things that we've noticed was, the price of corn is going up. And we never know if we're going to have another COVID event, and that really impacted donations one year. I believe having a reserve, not just for the community when we have those individual cases or individual programs that need emergency assistance, but I don't know of any other organization or fundraiser that does what we do with the Corn Festival. We're not making money. We're giving it completely back to the community and into those service groups. So I think it's nice to have a rainy day fund. Um, we did raise the food pantry. Also, it was about $1,000, 500 or $1,000 less.
Well, I
I
think
think it was,
last year, the
It
year
was
that we had the
1,000.
circus.
I think we added,
yeah,
they added 1,000 plus even the circle.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yes. So, and there isn't like an easy way to like tally the hours either. A group can have a lot of volunteers come in, like they can have like 15 volunteers and only do 2 hours versus a group coming in for the whole day and they only have 2 volunteers. So how do we weigh that and give that back? So those are the types of things that we discussed. Um,
And our metrics that we use is community need first. So directly, how do they distribute the money back to the community? It's volunteering through the year. How much are they engaged and involved in the community? Uh, and then their community service and the work that they actually do for the community. Because remember, we're required when we give money through a contract to a service organization, that money has to be spent in the community. Now it can be spent to support that service organization. And a lot of these groups do use the money for that, to support, to buy their insurance and help them maintain their group so that they can do other events in the community. We weighted a few of the funds, a few $100s here and there towards people that were actually providing food or medical assistance or something like that a little bit more. We thought and then any of the other groups, if they come back and say, well, we've got some special need that we're working on, they can make that case and we've got some reserve funds. Thank you, Mayor, for helping with that.
are there any questions?
Thanks for that. I agree that it should just be.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve the Corn Festival distribution agreements with local volunteers and service groups as presented by staff.
Or second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And thank you for the map. Same on both sides. Oh, I didn't even know it was double-sided. Look at that. I was just looking at one side.
The same on both sides, right?
Depends on how you look at it.
Okay, moving on to item 7, city administrator report.
I did not prepare a lengthy report for you as the last report of the year. I
That's it, we get to go home.
Council needed a rest from my reports. So I will just say that there are the police and public works report is in your packet. Everybody's doing a fantastic job keeping up with the requirements and everything we need to keep the city going. City staff is engaged in a food drive for the food pantry race. Public Works took it last year. I think advertising for donations out on the street was, maybe gave them a little bit of the edge, but the rest of the departments are working hard.
And I found out it's per item, right?
It's per item.
So I can open up a multi-packet thing of cookies and
Yep. However you want to donate, just make sure it's City Hall you're donating to.
Yeah, it's make sure somebody want to actually eat it after you get it.
The individually sealed, like individually sealed things in a packet, just open it up. Like the packages of top ramens.
They have to be packaged to be
Individual.
opened that way.
Yes,
Because
that's
if
right.
they're not, then I can't give them out that way.
Exactly.
Like
That's
the,
the-
like
Thank you,
the,
Della.
like the.
Clarifying that.
Like
I'll
the
tell you
5
where
or
to go
6 pack of
shopping.
ramen, right? Instead of just putting it in by itself, open it up and it counts as 5 items.
So, so I'll just touch on a couple of, quick things. I will be, technically on vacation from the 15th on, only because I have lose it or use it leave. However, I will be working because, well, I will be working. We will have some other staff that will be out on vacation. And so we'll be shorthanded the last 2 weeks of the year. So I'll fill in where I need to fill in, but I'll take as much of that time as I can. But if you need me, obviously I'm 24/7. And then, I'll just touch a little bit, on the, software conversion project that we're doing. We think we are nearing the end, of the process. In retrospect, we would have done a few things differently, than what we ended up doing, but, the culprit to, 3 months worth of issues seems to be a decimal point. 1 decimal point in the wrong place from one programmer to the next as kind of caused a lot of our headaches. A few of the online bill accounts have to go log in with a decimal point in the right place. So they're, I think about 340 of our users had to create not a new login with the new account. And we're walking folks through those. We're still not charging any late fees. We're working with all the customers. When we get to the disconnect period, then we start contacting everybody to make sure that they don't get to the disconnection point. And as long as they're responding, we'll give them an extension or whatever they need to do. But we're not charging any late fees for folks from the 10th to disconnection, and we haven't for the last couple of months. So we're working through it. Some customers are very generous with their patience, and some are not. But I think we're getting close to the end, and we should have it dialed in. I say that, I knock on wood, because each month we think we've got it solved, and then something pops up that we didn't expect. But I think we're close to having that done. I will tell you that it's been very hard on city staff. Because not only is it going through learning the new software and the pressure of that, but then it's trying to address customer concerns, and especially if they're not patient with us. But I think we're almost done. So I'm feeling much more confident. The good news is, whether it's done now or it's another 30 days, it's a temporary period, and we're gonna be into the new normal where everybody's all set up and ready to go. It didn't affect new customers because they were given the new decimal point number, and it didn't affect people that pay by check because everybody got a bill. And if they came in and paid by check or cash, which is a fairly significant number of our customers, it's really the ones that wanted to pay with a credit card or a bill pay that it affected. So it was a percentage of those folks. So other than that, it's been a good year. We did a lot of things, and I look forward to doing our State of the City presentation in January. I think everybody will be impressed.
Thank you, Ron. Moving on to mayor and councilor reports. Does anyone have anything to report?
I can tell you the food pantry's up to almost 120 people now.
Yeah.
Snap. And then most of them discovered that they could have qualified before, so they're not going away. And we continue to see another 10 to 20 people every time we distribute. All came at the same time, we'd be good.
So that's 120, what the thing?
So that it's 120 families. That represented last month 617 individuals. And we had over 2,000 pounds of food donated by the community, along with quite a bit of donations from corporates, businesses in town, which is really appreciated. We're spending anywhere from $500 to $1,000 per month to purchase food. So last month we purchased over 2,000 pounds of food for Thanksgiving so that we could have Thanksgiving and Christmas meals to supplement the families. Without that, we would have been in the hole already. So really appreciate our community stepping up and filling the needs that we have.
I'd like,
Go ahead. I was gonna say that's heartwarming and heartbreaking at the same time.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that the Aumsville Exchange Club does appreciate the donation amount from the Corn Festival. And this $3,000 is whatever we do as a club, we do it in or for Aumsville or in. And this past weekend, we had the Children's Christmas Festival, or sorry, Children's Christmas Shop that we ended up having 163 people come. 91 of them were children. And we had the pancake breakfast and the children shopped with elves to get presents for their parents. And we try to keep the gift at around the $10 to $15 range. So our tables were almost cleared of all gifts by the end of the day. And our breakfast cook, of course, was awesome. Thank you. That's one of the ways that the Exchange Club gives back from. Thank you, Aumsville. Thank you.
That's such a fun event. I stop by every year just to walk around and watch the kids and of course have some breakfast. But yeah. We have a couple events this month. We have Santa visits and our Christmas in the park. There might be a chance, I'll find out in the next couple days. I might have to work during Christmas in the park, coming in from Portland. I'm not excited about that. So I will find out in the next couple days. I might be rushing down, like leaving like 3:30.
I guess the council president will have to take your spot on stage to perform the skit.
I did
play.
Yeah, I did ask for an exemption, but I won't find out until probably Wednesday or Thursday. I think it would be good for Doug if I end up stuck in traffic. There's always that possibility, right? Coming down from Portland. He's glaring at me. You want to call my boss?
I could probably get you a police escort. Quite sure I can.
Just a heads up. I'm not too thrilled about that. Normally I have Saturdays off, but it was mandated. So that's just an FYI. I hope to see everyone there, even if I do arrive late. Hopefully it won't be an issue though. So. Okay. And other than that, is there anything for good of the order? We do have a correspondence. Did you got the 2025 preliminary population estimates? I guess we were about 4,200 and pretty darn close. We're according to this, it's 4,279. I did Google antelope. It's population 35. So I don't know. I think I want to move there. It's really nice. There's like nobody there. If you guys want to go ahead and look at that, that's interesting. Some good read in there, just to compare to see where we are and see the numbers fluctuating. Antelope.
They used to have many more, you know.
47. They had 47 at one point. They had 38. So I'm wondering if people moved away or they passed away. One of the two.
Aumsville.
So, other than that, is there anything else, guys? We can call it. Oh, and thank you for the Christmas card. I mean, the birthday card. Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and call the meeting. We'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 7:59 p.m.